Remember Atlyss? That cute furry game from last year with the generous character creator and cute NPCs? If you're anything like me, you probably had that towering dragon bunny, whatever she is, Angela, occupying your brain for several weeks, which is why I decided to draw her in my retro anime style. This video, I'll be talking about how I made this Atlyss fan art, my inspiration and experience with the game, and a bonus extra doodle I added as well. I hope you enjoy. Alright, so we're starting here with the sketch, and this is a little bit of a different process than I've used for other ones because this is a somewhat non-human character, much more furry than other characters that I've drawn. So I had to take a little bit of a different approach to constructing the face and figuring out how this snout would look from this angle, the very particular eye shape and mouth shape, the very oversized ears, and also the very exaggerated figure. Because I don't normally draw boobs this big. I mean, not that I was complaining, but I had to figure out how they would sit on the body from this sort of angle to make sure to shape them around the torso itself, and how they obstruct the head and the view of a lot of the head because this is such a low angle looking up. As well as the much wider hips because of the foreshortening of the things from below being much larger than whatever's above. Then of course we have the very different sort of arms, which I didn't construct normally, the tail. A lot of this was, rather than my normal careful measuring out process, it was a case of just sort of making estimates of what I thought would be a good fit, and it worked out pretty well, I think. Which meant that it was a relatively quick sketch process, and we started with the line art fairly soon, but the line art took a little bit longer. So I made sure to include these. I think that it adds a lot of detail and texture to a drawing, to add indentation where clothing sort of pulls and pushes against the skin. You can see on the boobs, there's a bit of a indent where you can see the different parts of the clothing provide a different level of sort of constriction around them. And then we have, as opposed to the sketch where the lines are very clean, I'm adding lots of these little fluffy, sort of cute bits of fluff around the ears, around the arms, wherever there's fur. Just adding this to add a little bit more of charisma to it, a bit of personality to it. Make it seem more textured and touchable and fluffy and cute, which I think is a really nice touch. I tried really hard to accurately copy the patterns that you see on this character's, on Angela's clothing, but it was very hard, and I'm not sure if I got them exactly right, but I tried my best. It was really interesting with the glasses too, figuring out that the snout would be partially covering them. So I had to sort of draw them with that in mind and make sure that they didn't sort of clip into the face in a way that would be unnatural. So that's pretty much the line art, although there is a bit more when it comes to the background, which I'll be talking about later. But for now, we're doing a bit of flat coloring, which I'm not entirely sure why I decided to manually color everything here instead of using the fill tool. But it is, it can be very soothing to color things by hand, I think. Now, the sort of lighting that I went with for this piece, the halo on top of the head is intended to be the source of light here, and it's on top of the head, which from a low angle means that it's behind. So we've got some, I forgot about those. So we've got some backlighting going on, which will move into a much kind of harsher and colored type of light. But for now, I start by applying a multiply layer, multiple in this case, to the drawing in order to provide like a consistent shadow of everything, and then erasing around the edges where it would be illuminated from behind. Things like the tip of the snout, and due to their size, the tops of the boobs, things like that. But then I added a second multiply layer to add another layer of shading just to get some more depth in some of the shadows, like underneath the boobs and underneath the tail, things like that. Not like adding overly much to overcomplicate it, but enough that you can understand the shapes. And this is the halo from behind. I very carefully studied the patterns in the halo to figure it out, to get it right. It was a lot of drawing some basic geometric shapes and then sort of connecting them together and figuring out the specifics of them. And then of course changing the color to this nice blue, which I also added to the eyes. I thought giving the eyes this just very, very solid blue glow would really add to the glow of the halo. Then I added some more layers here. You can see that I'm adding some more layers to the shading, a bit of gradient underneath. I don't add that to my art as much nowadays, but back when I made this, I thought that it added a little extra layer of, I wanted the real focus to be the sort of top of the body, and I didn't want the lower parts where it's less detailed to be as in focus, which is why I added this. Now it's the background, now it's the books. This took a while. This took a while to draw. These were very, a lot of measuring of the, because of the low angle, I almost drew it like a sort of fisheye lens with the bookshelf kind of curving around the camera and looking up towards, you can see the books towards the lower part are much bigger than the ones towards the top. Again, we've got this foreshortening of the things that are low down being much bigger than the things that are higher up. Just interrupting myself for a moment to remind you to subscribe so you don't miss a video. Awesome, thank you. Now, enjoy the rest of the time lapse. It took quite a while to figure out all of these books. I didn't want to just draw entirely these lines of block colors. I wanted to add some of these sort of books at little angles, give it a little bit of, it makes it more visually interesting, I think. It adds a little touch of like, oh, this background is more, there's a bit more process that's gone into this. It feels more alive like this, I think. It's kind of little details like that where you could make a quicker, there could be a quicker way of drawing it, again, by just making all of these books lines of blocks of colors, but adding these books that are drawn in the way that books would be on a bookshelf, where not all of them are even, they're different heights. I think that it adds a lot to a drawing like this. I really like to add sort of little details into backgrounds like this, especially very kind of, because the entire background is this bookshelf as well, I thought that it was really important that there are things to break up the monotony of the background, right? Because otherwise it would just be bookshelves. It would just be, I mean, it still is just bookshelves, but otherwise it would be very, there wouldn't be a lot for the eyes to, as they wander, to see and notice these little details, because these things are sort of noticed by the brain, even if the focus of the image is very heavily on, you know, the character in the middle. I at the very least did have the foresight to not draw the books that are going to be covered by the character anyway. That would have been that would have been a little bit silly, but it takes quite a while for me to draw these books, so I'll talk for a little bit about my experience with Atlyss, where this game came out about a year ago now, and some of my friends brought it to my attention, and I decided to play it and have some fun with the character creator. I made a cute little bird girl, which you might see later on in this video. I didn't really play it for a particularly long time. I'm not super familiar with how many updates I might have received more recently, but when I did play it, it was a pretty fun time. It was really nice kind of getting to, it's a very fun game to play with friends. It's a really cool game to play with friends, something where you can sort of hang out with people and engage in these activities that are very, easy to do while focusing on other things, I guess, if that makes any sense. And also it has a lot of cute characters like Angela here, who is very tall, and I appreciate that and I like that. But there are a lot of other NPCs in the game that I liked a lot. There are a lot of outfits in the game that I thought were fun. One of my friends actually gifted me the bunny suit outfit, which I didn't even know existed until they just handed it to me, and I was like, whoa, thank you. Boy, that's so cool. And yeah, I remember I remember fighting there was like a slime queen boss, or something like that. Or was it a wind queen, actually? I don't remember now. It's been too long since I played this game. But I remember fighting that boss quite a lot because I really wanted to get the set that the boss dropped, but it just wasn't happening, which is a real shame. I'm very sad. I'm very sad, but oh well. And now we have pretty much the first drawing of this video done, where you can see that I've added a lot more glow. I really wanted the focus to be the glow on the halo here, as the rest of the books and the body are very much more so in shadow. But there's one more part to this drawing, technically a separate drawing, but there's a paired piece of art to this drawing that I'll show you now, because this is the perspective that your character sees when you meet Angela, who's very tall, much taller than the player character, and I wanted to draw in turn the perspective that Angela sees of your character, which is what this is. So here is the character that I mentioned earlier, my cute little bird girl that I made, who I thought was very, very cute. And the player characters are much more kind of chibi, kind of proportioned, kind of short stack, right? Because as you've probably seen from the character creator, they have very big butts. I mean, they don't all have big butts, but it's an option. It's definitely an option in the character creator, which I personally appreciate. Awesome, good for them. So I made this cute little bird girl who I based this little creature drawing off of, and I mean, you've seen the Angela drawing that I just made, so you can probably imagine, if you can't already see where this is going, you can probably imagine what Angela's perspective would be of this little creature looking down, because Angela has very big boobs, and I thought that it would be very fun to draw this sort of perspective of like barely being able to see the player character beneath the boobs because she's so tall. Which is what the idea for this was based on. And I only realized after doing this, like, oh, I need to draw the floor, which took a little while to get the to get the details of the pattern of the floor correct and get the perspective of it correct so that it didn't look off. But I did eventually manage it, and you can see adding just a little bit of shading. This is a lot more simple drawing than the first one. I really like the boob shadow. I really like the boob shadow that I added to the player character. I think it's a very fun touch, and that's also about done for this secondary drawing. In the finished version, you can see that it's a bit more zoomed in. This was kind of cropped to a smaller size, because it was a less detailed drawing anyway, so I didn't particularly mind doing that. But of course, the main focus for this video was the Angela art piece right here, which I am very, very proud of. I think it's very pretty. I used a slightly different retro effects sort of process. It's an older one that I've since moved away from, though I think it has its appeal. I think it especially shines in this piece, where the scan lines are really kind of reflecting on the glow of the halo. I think it adds a really nice touch that's especially fitting for a game like this, because it makes it feel very kind of digital, but also in an analog way, which is very fun. There we have it, Angela looking down on you, and even a companion piece showing her perspective of this same image. Let me know in the comments which Atlyss character you like the most, and also click that subscribe button and check out this other video I made. See you next time!